Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian from Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the channel. If this is the first time that you are here, this is a discussionary channel talking about tech, video games, and anything that's happening in the display space of TVs, video games, PC, movies, Blu-rays. It's a pretty broad spectrum of things that we talk about here in the channel. It's discussion-based, meaning it's me talking to you guys and looking for your feedback in the community. It is a community where everyone tries to give their perspective and views, and I welcome your views, and I want those comments, I want them to be long and detailed, and I don't in a way want you to agree with me. I'm looking for discussion, and the discussion today is going to be a debated one that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and it's 8K and what I think about it, where its place is, my thoughts on it, and what I really want from you guys is, what are your thoughts on it? Now, the percentage of you in the community, and not just in tech in general, is divided. A good amount of you, probably 60-70% of you, are angry that 8K is here. Then there's a percentage that has newer displays that is concerned that you just purchased your brand new display from this year or last year, whether it's an OLED or a Samsung or any of the other brands, and you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm obsolete. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet. Then there's a smaller group that is really excited about it. Those of you that are into gaming and the new consoles, be it the PS5 and the new Xbox variant, Anaconda, whatever they're calling it now, that are really into FreeSync, variable refresh rate, HDMI 2.1, chroma subsampling at 10-bit. You're really, really excited about these things. And I find it interesting because it's a pretty varied group that is kind of all over the map, and I want to try and bring some clarity or transparency on my thoughts, and I'm looking for your thoughts. So, hold on. 8K, it's here. It's been here for actually a couple years. It was coming out last year and maybe the year before in some PC monitors, which with pixel density doesn't make much sense, as those monitors are far too small to enjoy 8K, but nevertheless, they were here. And we're going to speak to it in sections. And what you see behind me is a 75-inch Sony 900E. It is 4K. And on the screen is Doom 2016, probably my favorite game to illustrate picture quality. It's a very clean game. The aliasing, everything is nice and clean. You can get up as close to it as you want. And the reason why I have this behind me is I can actually play this game 3 feet away from a 75-inch TV and not have any issues with pixels, which takes away that argument of 8K is needed to be as close as you possibly can to the screen. Now, we're going to go into the argument of 8K, but my opinion right off the bat, at 3 minutes into this video, is 8K to me is kind of a scam. I don't think it's needed at all. And I can illustrate it this way. If you think about 4K. 4K was launched with now any content at all. None. Zero. I believe it was HDMI 1.4 still. The bandwidth wasn't there. The resolution was there. And they released these displays. I had a Samsung JS, gorgeous display. I didn't end up keeping it. It wasn't compatible with pass-through for any of my equipment, whether it was my PC, my receiver, anything like that. And there wasn't any content at all. At that time, I'm not even sure there was 4K demos on YouTube. There wasn't any Netflix content. There was no 4K Blu-ray discs. All there was Samsung had demos on disc, which were still only 1080p. So my point being is they released that without any content. And the only way to sell more displays after that was to give you a recognizable attraction, which was HDR. And all the marketing and all of the retailers and even CNET and a lot of my favorite websites at the time were saying that HDR was the big difference, not the resolution. Now think about that. 1080p was great. The larger you went with a 1080p, so a 1080p 75-inch TV within 10 feet wouldn't look very good. The resolution did have its limitations. But if you remember when 4K first launched and HDR was announced, almost every website said HDR was the really big difference, not 4K. How's that possible? The reason it was possible for me back then is there wasn't any 4K content. And even the movies that were being seen on Netflix were compressed. 4K Blu-ray, when it finally launched, were typically 2K upscales. We're going to talk about upscaling later, because upscaling is not magic, but it's being thrown around in the marketing as being this almost anti-aliasing solution that's going to clean everything up and make everything 8K. Do you remember when 1080p launched? Everything was going to become 1080p. We're going to get back to that in a second. This video is going to be long, but I want you guys to try and come with me on some of this and understand why 8K is just the same as it was when they launched all these other resolutions that didn't have content for them. And it took a few years for them to even find a footing. 8K being the guiltiest of them all, because it's so premature. To me, it has no business being here. Anyway, so we go back into HDR. So people saying HDR was the really big difference, simply because the 4K resolution, the movies at the time didn't look great. Why didn't they look great? They weren't native 4K. They also weren't on a 4K disc. So again, people said HDR is the big game changer. Cool. HDR wasn't even fully implemented. The way we saw it on the 2016 displays had crazy banding. They were just figuring it out. There were some movies that were super dark. Some of the 4K Blu-rays looked better, or the HDR on Netflix looked better in 1080p. So, again, marketing. But you're not going to buy a better 4K TV. You needed to buy 4K with HDR. There was a good amount of you that had 4K TVs and still do that don't have HDR, and those three letters are making you, Higher color gamut doesn't make you feel that way. Wider color gamut doesn't make you feel that way. 4K, okay, we've heard it. Big deal. 4K everything. It's everywhere now. What's going to make you want 8K? 8K. And to me, that is the simple answer. This video could end right now. I know some of you wish it would, but this is going to be a long one, so again, I apologize. For me, 8K is marketing. They need you to buy something else. I'm completely happy with this TV. I love it. Now I'm looking to buy something else in the next few months. It will be much brighter, much deeper, but I know this technology. You guys know technology. You guys know dimming zones. You know peak brightness. You know the different codecs with sound. You get the chroma subsampling. You get the FPS. Most people don't. And we are the minority. Us big fans of all this technology, us Star Wars fans, us movie fans, we think we're the majority. We are the minority. These displays are made primarily to walk in and say, I'll take that one. Next time you're in Best Buy or any retailer, just hang around and listen to the average person ask the salesman which one to get. And you'll hear the salesman or saleswoman say, oh, this one's 8K. Oh, 8K? Oh, awesome. I'll take it. They want what's new, whether there's content or not. I remember people selling 4K TVs without any 4K programming. There still isn't any. Your cable TVs are typically 720p, 1080i. Your satellite does have some 4K content. The Masters and Golf. There were a couple other ones. That's one or two. At best, it's 1080i, not even 1080p unless you have fiber. But a lot of my cable boxes are 720p. So why am I going to want 8K? So back to what we were saying about the marketing. They need you to be able to chase something specific. The common person is going to look at the size, the price, and the demo. We know the demos all look great. When you start telling me that, no, but this one, sir, has a wider color gamut, it has a higher peak brightness, it's got more dimmable zones, their eyes are going to glaze over. You tell them it's 8K, cool, awesome, sold. That's why they're doing this. For me, there's no other reason. Blu-ray 4K Blu-ray, which may go away, I think it'll be around for quite a while. The majority of them, maybe 90% of them, are 2K upscales. A lot of the early ones look better on Blu-ray. The HDR wasn't quite there. A lot of you guys are seeing grain structure and you're seeing noise in the image and you're not happy with the result. The majority of that is either grain that's inherent to the film, the way it was filmed, or that it's an upscale. Now, upscaling is not downsampling. It's not cleaning up anything. It's adding, if you look it up, the definition, it's adding false pixels to an image to fit the resolution, to fit the screen. The new Xbox X whatever and the PS5 will have 8K upscale. That is not 8K resolution. It's not even close by a mile. All that says, I'll give you a perfect example. The Xbox One S gave you 4K upscale. I had it when it first came out on my KS 8000 or 9000, I'm sorry, and it looked awful for me. It wasn't clean at all. It was choppy and messy, but they delivered the upscale. It was on the screen. It filled the screen. That is all upscale really means. I've been buying progressive Blu-ray players, upscale DVD players, S-video, all these things forever to try and clean the image up that little bit more. And how much of you look up on Amazon now, you'll find 1 million 4K upscaling DVD players. They don't do much. And sometimes they can make poor quality look worse. Now, this is what I mean about so many of you have bought 4K TVs, OLEDs, whatever, and your cable doesn't look great. Some companies handle upscaling better than others, but I would argue even when it upscales to its 1080p or the way we like the way it looks, my plasma looks better at 1080p than this one does. And the Sony 900E is known for its upscale. My plasma looks better at 1080p with 1080p content than this one. It's larger, but I wouldn't say it's cleaner, even though it has a clean image. Upscaling 8K is only going to make that worse, in my opinion. In my humble opinion, it's only going to make that worse. The adding of false pixels is why you get that noise. The grain structure is intact. It's even because it's from film. Noise, it almost moves. It almost plagues the image. A lot of that is why we see a grain structure more prominent in 4K Blu-rays. Why does the 4K Blu-ray of Alien look grainier than the 1080p version? It's more enhanced. It's noise. It's upscaled. You know, maybe not Alien, but how are we going to do 2K upscaling to 8K? And that's going to look better, but you're selling that. So that, go back to when you bought your first HD TV, 1080p, 720p. We can go back as far as you guys want to go. My first Sony Wega projection LCD, I was told upscale. It's going to take every standard definition DVD you have, and it's going to make it 1080. At the time, it was 1080i. I was excited. I got home. I grabbed my Lord of the Rings, my Braveheart, my Gladiator, put it on my Dolby Digital. I plugged it in, and I was absolutely horrified. I was horrified. Then I had to go into the settings, lower settings, change settings, but where's my 1080i? There wasn't Blu-rays yet. There was HD DVD that was coming out. That was only 1080i. I had the Xbox adapter. So I've been on this roller coaster a million times. So why am I saying this to, who I'm really speaking to here is that nervous group. That group that feels like they just made a huge mistake buying a 4K TV. Because you're seeing the 900R, you're seeing the Z9G, and you're going to see it. And I'm telling you, do not sweat it. I promise you it's going to be fine. It's just my opinion, knowing these trends and falling victim to them many, many times. They're going to also make it to where it's inadvertent. You're going to buy an 8K TV because if you want a Samsung flagship, the 900R, it's 8K. If you want the Z9G, it's 8K. And you're going to say, okay. Just like you did with 4K. It was very hard to find another 1080p display a few years ago. You ended up getting 4K inadvertently. You ended up getting 3D a few years ago inadvertently, whether you wanted it or not. This time, they're not charging you for 8K like they did 3D or 4K. This time, the 8K flagship at Samsung, $7,000, that's how much the flagships cost. They're not even charging you for 8K. It's getting you to buy it because it's 8K. So, upscaling. The purpose of it is to fill the screen, fill the image. It is not anti-aliasing. Downsampling, where they send you a higher resolution and they squeeze it down to fit your screen, like DSR and some other, it does fit well. Those of you that have an Xbox One X and are playing on 1080p can attest to that. It cleans up the image. It does not work the other way. And no matter, in my opinion, again, no matter what they say in the marketing, upscaling to 8K even further just isn't going to work well. Or it might be fine, but it's not worth buying or chasing unless you're buying it inadvertently. So that's my opinion on the upscaling. Quickly, we're going to go into, what was the next subject? Content. There isn't any. Just like when 4K launched, there isn't any 8K content. I saw the 8K demo on the 900R. It looks great. It's a beautiful display. Still pretty heavy blooming for a new generation display, but beautiful. They had blooming solved in about 2016 with the Z9D, the 940E, and the KS9800. Pretty solved. It's gone away from that. Not saying those TVs are bad or those displays are bad. It's just not their focus anymore. Now 8K is their focus. Do you see what I did there? Blooming, no blooming, doesn't matter to the common person. It matters to you. And to me, it just doesn't matter to the person out there buying a TV. Ask your friends that aren't into this. They're going to say, give me the 8K one. It makes perfect sense. Give me that one. Gaming. You guys are talking about variable refresh rate, FreeSync. That stuff is all amazing if you have a corresponding GPU. If your Xbox that isn't out yet, your PS4 Pro 5 that isn't out yet, if those things correspond with what you have already. A lot of this is out with HDMI 2.1. Now, where I'm excited for HDMI 2.1 is full RGB at 10-bit, is chroma subspace, chroma color space at 10-bit versus 8-bit. That I'm excited about. People aren't going to buy that. No one's buying a TV for that. Oh, I want that color space. They want 8K because it's the marketing. 8K upscale for gaming, guys. The horsepower in order to push 4K at 60 right now at this moment are the RTX 2080 Ti, RTX 2080, the GTX 1080 Ti can manage it. They can manage it at max ultra settings on some titles, not on others. The RTX was $2,000 at launch. The GTX 1080 Ti, which I have, was $1,000. You're telling me that the new systems are going to push 8K at 30 or 4K at 120 FPS? They can't do 4K at 30 right now. Now, don't get me wrong, the Xbox One X can muster it here and there with dynamic resolution, meaning the resolution changes by the scene, or the inside of the resolution is 4K with the outside being a different resolution, half the screen. You'll hear this a lot on Digital Foundry. Right now, the PS4 Pro is really struggling with that very thing. Okay, these are the last year generations. But do you honestly think... Now, I will tell you, what can push 8K right now is two RTX 2080 Ti's in SLI, meaning two of them, which isn't compatible with most titles in SLI anymore. Those cards would be $4,000 to run a game at 8K at 30 or 4K at 120. Now you add the ray tracing, which is an awesome technology. That brings the RTX 2080 Ti to its knees, meaning that they can run a game at 4K at 60. RTX ray tracing brings it down to 30. They're going to have ray tracing on these consoles, which will be awesome. Those are going to be 4K at 30 or with ray tracing, or 4K at 60. The goal, believe me, guys, is going to be 4K at 60. 8K upscale is just going to be 8K on the screen. It's not going to be real 8K. It's so far away horsepower-wise, guys. And now that NVIDIA's turned their attention to ray tracing, it's going to be about delivering 4K at 60 with ray tracing with the next generation. Now, again, my opinion, this is a discussion. I want you guys to give me your opinion. But I'm trying to say for you guys, even with FreeSync and all those great things, if you have the corresponding GPU, do FreeSync on your 4K displays. 8K is not necessary. It's not necessary for your Blu-rays that are 2K. If you think that your 4K Blu-rays are underwhelming now, they're going to look even worse at 8K, or maybe even the same, but it's not necessary. It's just going to add confusion, and it's going to force maybe the other manufacturers to jump in without ever really getting 4K to a beautiful, smooth place. Eradicate blooming, make the picture as beautiful as you possibly can, and OLED, solve burn-in, things of that nature before you go jumping. It's just not necessary. Now, the higher bandwidth of HDMI 2.1 will be necessary. 12-bit will be necessary. 8K is not necessary. Give me 4K, 12-bit, Dolby Vision, HDR, another version of that at 12-bit, the higher bandwidth, and I'll be happy. Why I have Doom here is I can sit right up to it, and I don't see any pixels. So there goes the argument of having to have a TV that's 75 inches at 8K. For those of you that do have a 75-inch TV, you know it's perfect. You can put your nose up to the screen. For those of you that have smaller displays, you're led to believe that 75 is got to be 8K. 80 doesn't have to be 8K. I'm talking about 100 plus is where 8K will become necessary. That's not feasible for most people's houses. It just doesn't fit. Projectors is where you'll go for that. Who has a house large enough to have a 100 plus inch monster TV in their house? So 75, 80, still good. Anything higher than that, you'll be looking at projectors. Not just because of the size, the price. You're going to spend $20,000 on a big monstrosity. That's my thoughts on 8K, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments, please. And if you agree with me or disagree with me, keep it civil. I look forward to hearing from all of you. I really enjoy the interaction with you guys. But 8K, if you're, oh no, hold on. If 8K, if you're excited about it, be excited about it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with being excited about it. I think you're going to have it inadvertently. I don't think it's going to look worse. It's just not necessary in any way for me. It's just not something that I will ever need. I'm going to buy a 4K display in a few months, and I could care less about 8K. I don't think you should either. If you're excited, be excited. If you're mad, be mad. But those of you that are afraid or worried about it, don't be worried. I'm Brian at Whisper Status 74. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.